Good afternoon, everyone. Now we're on Module 7, Discourse Grammar. In this module, we will tackle first the grammar from a discourse perspective. McCarthy found the linguistic items such as this, that, and it functions as a signals reference for continuing or ongoing topic in a text. It has a distancing or marginalizing function in a text which indicates the raising of new topic or new focus in a topic. Celso-Murcia argued for the contextual analysis of the functions of grammatical form in relation to where, why, and how frequently it is used in written and spoken discourse rather than in isolated sentences. She also shows how tense and aspect choices differ in extended discourse. Celso-Murcia and Ulstein 2000 discuss how be going to and will, when looked at from a discourse perspective, show different functions other than just the expression of time. Grammar and discourse from contextual perspective. Hiles 2005 describes the process of examining grammar and discourse from a contextual perspective. The first stage in this process is to make a decision as to what aspect of language to investigate. As we all know, ESL books and the native speakers are one of the great sources to make a decision on what aspect of language to investigate. Now, ESL books may have different views presented as well as the native speakers. They may have different views on the use of language items and how it should be used. The next stage is to look at as many sources as possible, from reference grammars, style manuals to ESL textbooks, to see what is already known about the language item. The next stage is to look at as many sources as possible, from reference grammars, style manuals to ESL textbooks, to see what is already known about the language item. The next step is to look at real-life native speaker examples of the particular item in spoken or written discourse. The examples can be collected individually or corpus, and it will be analyzed to see the role it played in discourse. It may influence the use of items in the discourse, and it will help to develop hypotheses. The final step is to test the hypotheses that have been formed by asking native speakers if they would make the same choices that the research suggests they would make. The final test is to see if we'll use the same language items by portraying role play to see if the language item use is the same with the research. Comparing discourse and sentence-based grammars. Hughes and McCarthy 1998 make a helpful comparison between discourse and sentence-based grammars. They argue that discourse-based grammars makes 1. They argue that discourse-based grammar makes a strong connection between form, function, and context, and aims to place appropriateness and use at the center of its descriptions, acknowledges language choice, promotes awareness of interpersonal factors in grammatical choice, and can provide insights into areas of grammar that previously lacked a satisfactory explanation. Cataphoric reference. Cataphoric reference describes an item which refers forward to another word or phrase which is used later in the text. For example, it seems everyone's read that self-help book, Greg Berhand and Liz Tucilius, he's just not into you. So as we see the language item that is the cataphoric the language item that is the cataphoric reference to see what is the book described in the text. Exophoric reference. Exophoric reference looks outside the text to the situation in which the text occurs for the identity of the item being referred to. For example, customer. What kind of book would you say this is? Where would you put it on your bookshelves? In this example, the speakers know what book they are referring to. Homophoric reference. Homophoric reference is where the identity of the item can be retrieved by reference to cultural knowledge in general rather than the specific context of the text. An example of this is again from the review of He's Just Not That Into You. This is the example. First in the US, then all over the world, women became converts to the book's tough love message. The homophoric reference in this example is the US. We all know which US is being referred to, which world is being referred to, and what book is being referred to. Comparative and bridging reference. Comparative reference. The identity of the presumed item is retrieved not because it has already been mentioned or will be mentioned in the text, but because an item which it is being compared has been mentioned. So for the first example, the others is the comparative reference for example, when it was published late last year, Oprah sang its praises. Tearful Woman called it Bible, and others declared it had changed their lives forever. The second example, the book assumes all men are confident, or if they really like a girl, they'll overcome their shyness. The opposite is true. So the comparative reference in this examples are others and opposite. Um, Under this reference, the author assumed that we know what the authors assume which others and opposite. So the situation of the text is about approaching woman, and the bridging reference is and the last one, a bridging reference. For Martin and Rose, 2003, is when an item refers to something that has to be inferentially derived from the text or situation, that is, something that has to be presumed indirectly. For example, Stuart agrees. I was hopeless, he says with a laugh. I'm just not all of those blokes that finds approaching women easy. So, from the example, the author assumed that we are not told which books he is referring to, but the author presumed that we can indirectly derive this.
Lexical cohesion. When we say lexical cohesion, it is refers to the relationships in meaning between lexical items in a text and in particular content, words, and the relationship between them. The main kinds of lexical cohesion are repetition, synonymy, antonymy, hyponymy, meronymy, and decollocation. When we say repetition, it is refers to the words that are repeated in a text. This includes words which are inflected for tense or numbers and words, which are derived from particular items such as Stuart and Sue. In the following example, although the form of these two items is slightly different, the author is certain that it will be clear that she is still referring the same person. Synonymy. When we say synonymy, which are similar in meaning such as date and go out in the above example and blocks and men in the following example. I'm just not one of those blocks that finds approaching women easy. The book assumes all men are confident, or that if they really like a girl, they overcome their shyness. The opposite is true by Cooper 2005. In English, it is not good style to continuously repeat the same word in a text. Both blocks and men are referring to the same concept but in different way. Antonymy. When we say antonymy, it is describes opposite or contrastive meanings, such as shy and forward in the earlier text, and women and men, real players and buffheads in the following text. For example, Andy Stern 28, a builder says, his won the book will drive women towards dodgy men. Only real players do full on charm, he said. The real of us are buffheads. We often do nothing at all and just hope it noticed that we like them. By Cooper 2005. We know as we read the text which meanings contrast with each other. Part of the meaning, indeed, derives from this contrast. Hyponymy and meronymy. Halliday in the year 1990 describes two kinds of lexical taxonomies that typically occur in text, which are the superordination and composition. These are words which are in the kind of relationship with each other. Superordination and words that are in whole part relationship with each other. Composition. In the previous text, Jen and Stuart are part of the lexical item, couple, whereas He's Just Not That Into You is the kind of self-help book. The relationship between Jen and a couple is an example of meronymy. The relationship between self-help book and He's Just Not That Into You is one of hyponymy. Hyponymy. Hyponymy then refers to classes of lexical items where the relationship between them is one of general specific. An example of are in a class to member type relationship. In this example, he's just not unto you. I'm okay, you're okay, you can let go now. It's okay to be who you are and ready or not. Here life comes also be described as cohyponyms of the superordination term self-help book. Meronymy. Meronymy is where lexical items are in whole-to-part relationship with each other, such as relationship between Jen and Stuart. In relation to the item couple and Jen and Stuart are co-meronymy of the superordinate item couple. As Halliday in the year 1990 points out, these taxonomies can become very complicated with many layers of organization built into them. There is also the problem that these relationships are usually not made explicit, with the result that if someone does not already know the relationship between the items, they are left to work it out from the next.
Good afternoon. My topic is all about collocation. First, we will define what is collocation means. Collocation is a series of words that co-occur more often than would be expected by chance. So, in other words, collocation means some words are fit together and in other words don't. For example, there was a hard traffic on the way to the center. But as you can see, some native speakers don't use the word hard traffic. Instead, they could use heavy traffic. Collocation describes associations between vocabulary items which have a tendency to co-occur, such as combinations of adjectives and nouns. As in real estate agent, the right direction and an ossiman. Collocation includes relationships between verbs and nouns, such as love and book and waste and time. It is also includes items which typically co-occur, such as men and women and love and hate. Collocation is not something that is restricted to a single text but is a part of textual knowledge in general. A writer and a speaker of a language draws on this knowledge of collocation as they write and speak.
So good afternoon. Today let's talk about conjunction. So first, let's define what is all about conjunction and what is conjunction is. A further way in which language contributes to the texture of a text is through the use of conjunction. So conjunctions refers to the words such as and, however, finally, and in conclusion that join phrases, clauses, or section of a text in such a way that they express the logical semantic relationship between them. They are further important part of discourse knowledge that the speakers and writers and our readers and our listeners draw on say they both produce and interpret spoken and written discourse. Conjunctions described by Halliday and Hazen under the groupings of additive, adversative, casual, and temporal conjunctions. Martin 1992 and Martin Rose 2003, extending Halliday and Hazen's work in this area, discuss conjunctions under the categories of additive, comparative, temporal, and consequential conjunctions. There are four types of conjunctions where Halliday and Hazen's interpret, which are additive conjunctions, comparative conjunctions, temporal conjunctions, and consequential conjunctions. So, additive conjunctions are words that and, moreover, in addition and alternatively. That is, they draw on the notion of addition in both a positive and constructive sense, while comparative conjunctions includes the words whereas, but, on the other hand, I likewise, and equal, drawing on the notion of comparison in both a positive and a negative sense, while temporal conjunctions include the words such as while, when, after, meanwhile, then, finally, and at the same time. And lastly, the consequential conjunctions. It includes the words such as so that, because, since, thus, if, therefore, in conclusion, and in this way. So, I have here some examples of sentences, including the additive conjunctions, comparative conjunctions, temporal conjunctions, and the consequential conjunctions. So here are some examples of additive conjunction. So in the first sentence, I put milk and sugar in my tea, in which the additive conjunction used here is the word and, in which merely add the clauses, I put milk and sugar in my tea. In the second sentence, his favorite snacks are cakes and biscuits. So it's merely add the clauses, favorite snacks are cakes and a biscuit. So let's go to the next types of conjunction. The comparative conjunction. In the first sentence, he is poor, but he is honest. So the comparative conjunction used here is the word but, in which it compared about positive and negative side, in which is the sentence he is poor is the negative side, and in the positive side, which is he is honest. So let's go to the second sentence. I like coffee, but my husband prefers tea. So the comparative conjunction used here is the word but. It shows comparison between the coffee and a tea. So the third sentence, I eat cake, but I never eat biscuit. So it shows also the comparison between a cake and a biscuit. And let's go to the third types of conjunction, which is the temporal conjunction. So I pass after the green light on. So in that sentence, the temporal conjunction used is the word after. So in which it refers to the time since the green light on. The second sentence is finally, she came very early. So the temporal conjunction used is finally, finally. And then next, the last type of conjunction, which is the consequential conjunction. So the sentence here is, she usually eats fast food because she didn't want to cook in their house. So the consequential conjunction used is the word because, in which it refers to it shows a reason behind the sentence. And next is, she came first, therefore she got a good seat. So the consequential conjunction used here is the word therefore. So it has the reason behind the sentence used. So next, that's all for this.
So, good afternoon everyone. Let's proceed to the next topic, which is substitution and ellipsis. A further way in which texture is achieved in a text is through the use of substitution and ellipsis. First, let's define what is substitution. According to Halliday and Hassan, it is the process in which one item within a text or discourse is replaced by another. There are three different types of substitution: nominal substitution, verbal substitution, and causal substitution. Nominal substitution, or the replacement of a noun by once or one. For example, try reading this book. Is that once not very good? So here, the word once substitutes the noun book. I'd like a sweet cherry and John would like a dry one. So here we can use the pronoun once and one after adjectives or demonstrative. Which color would you prefer for your mom? This one or that? Here we can also use demonstrative pronouns without using one or once. We can also use or replace a noun or noun phrase with a quantifier. For example, some, all, each, none, either, neither, both, a few. Verbal substitution, or a replacement of a verb. For example, has he had dinner yet? He must have done. There's no food in the fridge. So here, the word done substitute for the verb group had dinner. They live very near where I do. So here we can use a form of do to avoid repeating a present or past simple verb. I didn't watch K-drama last night. Neither did I. So here, this pattern can be used to agree in a short answer. Substitution or causal substitution, or the replacement of a clause. For example, That's a great to hear you're still happy. Oh yes, very much so. So here, the word so substitute for the clause you're still happy. Will they be coming to our party? I guess not. Here, some verbs, however, use only not. Be afraid, guess, hope, suppose. They will find the restaurant easily. If not, they can always ask a passerby. So here, we substitute if clauses with if, so, and if not. Now, let's proceed to the ellipsis. Ellipsis is simply characterized by the omission of an item. It is according to Halliday and Hassan. There are also 3 different types of ellipsis: nominal ellipsis, verbal ellipsis, and causal ellipsis. Nominal ellipsis, or omitting a noun. For example, I went to the bar and asked for a beer. Here, we often omit nouns or pronouns in the second of 2 coordinate clauses. I went to the bar and asked for a beer because I was thirsty. Here, we do not leave out pronouns in subordinate clauses. Verbal ellipsis, or omitting a verb. For example, a coffee appeals to a young people and tea to the elderly. Here, we can omit a verb to avoid repeating it. You certainly are more intelligent than her. Here, if the comparison clause begins with a pronoun and we omit the verb phrase, we use the object pronoun rather than the subject pronoun. Causal ellipsis. For example, although Mary has tried so hard to stop smoking, he hasn't been able to. So here, we can omit an infinitive phrase when the meaning is clear. Leave the stuff whenever you want. Here, after want and would like if or WH clause, we can also omit to. So that would be all for today. Thank you for listening.